The vagus nerve controls the relaxation response through the transmitter acetylcholine. Vagal nerve stimulation therapy using a pacemaker-like device implanted in the chest is a treatment that's been used since 1997 to control seizures in epilepsy patients. Now get this, they are using a pacemaker-like device surgically implanted in the chest to stimulate the vagus nerve, which controls seizures in epilepsy patients, and there are simple ways to stimulate the vagus nerve yourself. In this device, every 2 to 5 minutes, this little machine stimulates the vagus nerve, causing your diaphragm to contract. It's recently even been approved in the U.S. for the treatment of depression and works about as well as antidepressants. Problem is, it has to be surgically implanted, and this little gadget is going to set you back by about $25,000, and I'm not sure that includes the surgical implantation either. And it only stimulates the left vagus nerve, and it only affects a small portion of the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve stimulation may also be achieved by what is called a vagal maneuver. One of these vagal maneuvers consists of just holding your breath for a few seconds, as you do when you want to stop the hiccups. Another is dipping your face in cold water, coughing sharply, tensing your stomach muscles as if to bear down to have a bowel movement. Patients with supraventricular tachycardia, atrial fibrillation, and other illnesses are being trained to perform these vagal maneuvers to keep their heartbeat regular. Studies have been done on the effects of electronic vagal stimulation, and these have shown that this little gadget induces the release of hormones such as prolactin, vasopressin, and oxytocin. Oxytocin is known as the cuddle hormone. If a group of animals come together in a social context, they release a lot of oxytocin. It's also released during childbirth and during sexual activity, as well as during breastfeeding. Serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that is, antidepressants, activate oxytocin release. So let's think a little bit about this vagus nerve. If stimulating the vagus nerve is the key to sorting out your stress, as we imagine from all of the above details, I think we need to know just a little bit about where it comes from and what it does. The vagus nerve enters the brainstem. It then splits into what's called an upper root that stimulates the thalamus, which affects the cortex, which is the thinking part of your brain, and a lower path that goes into the limbic system, or the emotional brain. Once again, we are reminded of the fact that stress is a response to danger in the environment. It's the species-specific programmed reaction to threats to our survival. We need to think about the fact that all of us are feeling some sort of reaction to something in our environment that scares the hell out of us. And it is species-specific to the majority of human beings to be feeling this right now, with our world in its present state and on its present trajectory. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an epidemic of stress and stress-induced disease. But there is a small minority that apparently do not feel this species-specific reaction to the conditions of our world. In fact, they seem to be in charge of creating those conditions. I think that you should give that just a little bit of thought. Our bodies are telling us something, and we need to be listening. In the meantime, we need to learn how to deal with our stress. So back to our vagus nerve. Both the right and the left vagus nerves descend from the brain in the carotid sheath lateral to the carotid artery. The carotid artery, as you may know, is that artery on the side of your neck where you can put your fingertips and you can feel your heartbeat there. It extends through the jugular foramen down below the head to the neck, chest, and abdomen, where it contributes to the innervation of the viscera. That is, it's connected directly to your gut. Stimulating the vagus nerve, you can affect the high root from the thalamus to the cortex. When you affect the cortex in this way, you produce what is called sensory motor rhythm, or SMR. This is an activated pattern in the parietal cortex that is associated with the state of relaxed vigilance. In other words, it makes you very aware and very alert, but at the same time, you're relaxed and not stressed. Animals or humans exhibiting SMR show improved sleep, digestion, thinking, and memory. It's also been said that this SMR state prevents you from craving drugs and overeating. Apparently, you can achieve all of these benefits by self-stimulation of the vagus nerve via controlled breathing exercises. Remember, the left and right vagus nerves pass between the trachea and the esophagus. Breath training that induces stimulation of the vagus nerves reduces sympathetic nervous system over-arousal. It increases parasympathetic nervous system activity, which is the relax, recuperate, and regenerate system. This calms you down. The important key here is that the beneficial effects of controlled breathing on the vagus nerve occur primarily during exhalation. During exhaling, your heart rate decelerates, and during the period of deceleration of the heart, the vagus becomes active. Shallow, rapid breathing patterns inhibit the vagus because the period of vagal activity is too short. By slowing down your breathing, you create more vagal activity, accentuating its relaxing and regenerating effects. Not only is breath the engine of the sounds that we make, deep inhalations and exhalations are inextricably linked with emotionality and altered states. To the Chinese, breath had the metaphorical importance that we give to blood. To them, breath was life. To breathe was to be, and to breathe deeply was to move your qi, which was considered by them to be the energy of your soul. The diaphragm is your primary breathing muscle. It's a thin, wide sheet of muscle that separates your thoracic cavity from your lower abdominal cavity. It has a high dome shape. When it contracts, as it does when you breathe, or should be doing when you breathe, it flattens out. In other words, it's like a plunger. It's like a high domed rubber thing, and then when you smash it flat, it creates pressure in one direction and creates a suction, a vacuum, in the upper thoracic cavity. Since the watery viscera, your intestines, and so forth, cannot be compressed, they get out of the way. And where do they go? They go out. The abdominal contents are forced down and out so that when you inhale with your diaphragm, your belly expands. That is why good breathing practice is usually described as abdominal breathing or belly breathing. Now, everybody in Western culture is upset by the very idea of having a bulging belly. We spend our time going around sucking it in and keeping it flat, and people naturally, as a result of social and cultural programming, tend not to want to breathe with their bellies. So they breathe very shallowly so that their belly won't move. This is very bad. When people don't breathe well, they tend to breathe in reverse. That is, the movement of their abdomen during respiration is the opposite of what is normal and healthy. Instead of letting the belly move outward during inhalation, they try to suck it in. And when they exhale, they are no longer in any danger of having their belly bulge out and make them look bad, so that's when they relax it. So everybody is breathing in reverse. In other words, most people don't use their diaphragms to breathe. Now the thing is, exhaling without the diaphragm is not a big deal. It's inhaling that's the problem. Without inhaling with the diaphragm, it's very hard work for your body because somehow or other you're going to have to get the rib cage to lift and expand so that you can create that vacuum so that the lungs will fill with air. The only muscles that are really designed for serious rib lifting are the intercostals, and they can only do so much. People end up recruiting the pectoralis minors, the sternocleidomastoids, and the scalene muscles. Imagine a handful of muscles the size of pencils trying to lift your rib cage several times per minute, all day long, every day, day after day, week after week, year after year. Given their privileged position and peculiar significance, the scalenes are powerful agents of change and release of emotional states. Linked to this is the fact that these muscles are controlling the neck, and the neck is where the vagus nerve passes between the trachea and the esophagus. Now, in order to stop breathing with your chest and throat muscles, which is the wrong way to breathe, even though this is what many people do, you have to relearn how to breathe with your diaphragm.